Sensibilities are different everywhere, but video games are international. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on GameRanks, 10 video games that offended entire countries. Number 10, Battlefield 4 apparently offended China pretty badly in portraying a fictional version of China from 2020 with civil and military unrest. You know, not a real, actual scenario, a totally fake scenario made for a totally fake game set in the future.
这么多年来，给他们造玩具、鞋子，甚至
And it's not like the game came out last week or anything, it's from 2013, so it was even further in the future back then, you know, 5 years ago. But China's state media didn't really want to acknowledge that at the time, and just portrayed it as intentionally attacking China. Number 9, Turkey concluded that Minecraft encourages children to be violent as well as antisocial because there can be griefing going on in the multiplayer component, as well as the eventual need to kill animals or zombies for food or survival. Back in 2015, Turkey attempted to ban the game for these reasons, despite the fact that many other games that do not have any attempts to ban them in Turkey have many more of those features, except for much more visible. Minecraft is by no means a realistic looking game, and to say it actually inspires children to be violent is, I think, a weird stretch to make. Especially considering that Minecraft is more often than not lauded and used for its creative components as opposed to its actual gameplay mechanics. Most people don't play Minecraft because it's a survival game. But you know, whatever, Turkey. Number 8, World of Warships really bothered Korea on account it had the inclusion of the Rising Sun Japanese flag, which is the flag that they flew in World War II. There's a few reasons why Korea might be upset about that. Many people in Korea consider it to be the equivalent of the Nazi swastika, basically in places that are not Korea. This is because Japan really wasn't very good in World War II, and I get this to some extent, but for me it seems like if you're in a warship battle and you beat the warship with that flag on it, it can't be that different from beating the Nazis in Wolfenstein. Satisfying. But again, that's just me. Number 7, in 2013, Pakistan banned Call of Duty Black Ops 2 and Medal of Honor Warfighter for quote-unquote portraying Pakistan badly, or in another way of putting it, it said that both of the games were against Pakistan. Now, if you've played either of these games, it's understandable that one might not find those portrayals positive. But if there's a bad way of spreading the idea that the game is wrong, it is not banning it. Neither of these two games ever makes an actual claim or assertion that Pakistan itself is bad, or ever really do anything that is truly horrifically wrong, and therefore a ban seems like an overreaction by default. I can certainly understand if it was some kind of Pakistani genocide simulator, but you've played both of these games and you probably haven't thought even very much about Pakistan as a whole because of them. Number 6, Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter 2 was banned in Mexico because it negatively portrays the people of that state as violent. In order to combat this look, the state declared that it would be confiscating any copies that it found in people's possession, which confiscation of property, though not physical violence, is often aided by physical violence, so hardly a good way to prove that that portrayal was wrong, even though, as we all know, there's no such thing as a place in the world that is entirely peaceful or entirely violent. Number 5, Battlefield 3 actually got banned in Iran, despite not actually even being on sale there. You see, EA doesn't distribute games in Iran because, well, it's a little bit of a volatile market, let's say. That isn't to say, however, that pirated copies aren't sold in shops there, because games like Battlefield 3 are pretty much universally loved worldwide. Now, the reason it got banned, though, is that authorities objected to the plot that basically revolves around a US military raid on Tehran.
You come to our country to murder us, yet we are the terrorists.
Which is the capital of Iran. And given that the Middle East isn't exactly a stable situation, it was viewed as something that potentially undermined the Iranian government's authority. Feels over reals, am I right? Come on, Iran. Are you offended? Number 4, Call of Duty Black Ops upset the Cuban government because of a segment in the game in which players try to kill Castro, the former leader of Cuba, angry that it glorifies US assassination attempts that had actually happened in the past. They had this to say: what the United States government did not achieve in more than 50 years, it now tries to do virtually. And in all honesty, if you actually do care about how war happens in the world, I get this. Like, whatever you think about Castro, it's probably not so great that we go around and try to assassinate the leaders of countries. But also, at the time this game had been made, Fidel Castro hadn't been the leader of the country for quite some time. There is kind of an actual legitimate moral component to complaining about a game doing this, but there's also the argument that historically the United States actually has done that, and although video games may not be the best medium to portray it in, it is actually historically accurate to portray this. This one's a little murkier than a lot of them, but ultimately, I think we can maintain that it would have been better had they just let it be. Number 3, Germany banned Fallout 3 because the German Department for Media Harmful to Minors listed it as one example of such media. This completely stops any lawful sale of any media in the country if it gets listed by them, and normally that listing stays on for 10 years, but Bethesda was actually able to overturn it 7 years in because they were able to build a case that by today's standards that are not actually that different than the standards of that time, the game was not harmful to minors. Still, won't somebody think of the children is literally the worst. Number 2, a game by the name of Fight of Gods last year offended the Malaysian government so much they actually blocked access to Steam entirely, as in you could not use Steam in the country because they didn't like the idea of Jesus and Buddha fighting. I, however, love the idea of Jesus and Buddha fighting, and think that that was a huge overreaction on Malaysia's part. Not long after they restored Steam to the country, but they also made sure that Fight of Gods had been removed from the storefront, which is honestly a pretty dick move. Like, if people want to fight the gods of various eras against each other, why not just let it happen? And finally, number 1, Bolivia took issue with Ghost Recon Wildlands. They claim that the game unfairly portrayed the country as under the control of a drug cartel, which I get why you don't want to be viewed that way. Believe me, there's very little I take issue in the actual underlying reasoning. It's just that there's one big thing about it that I think Bolivia didn't take into consideration. Nobody thinks Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Wildlands is a real thing. Nobody. So not wanting to be portrayed as a narco state, sure, I get that. Except they're not being portrayed as that for real. And nobody thinks they are. So what's the deal, Bolivia? Why do you care? Have you ever been offended by a game or seen someone offended by a game? I'm sure that sometime in your life you could have answered yes to one of those questions, so leave us a comment, let us know what you think. And if you enjoyed this video, please click like. If you're not subscribed now, it'd of course be a good time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is of course a subscription. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero, and we'll see you next time right here on Game Ranks.